Passive Income Lifestyle Series. I'm your host, Travis Watts, the Director of Investor Education here at Ashcroft Capital. In today's episode, we're talking about the path to fulfillment in unlocking your core values. Disclaimers as always, never financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do with your money. Please always seek licensed financial advice when it comes to your own investing. So I'll start this episode off with a short story. The other day, my wife and I and our son were on a bike ride through the neighborhood. We passed through this home and, of course, this is a beautiful home. This is a very high-end home, probably if I had to guess, probably a $3 million house. My wife stops and says, I really love this home every time we stop by it. So I thought to myself, I said, okay, hypothetically, what if we could get this home for $1 million instead of $3 million? Would that prompt you to sell our house and move? And what she said was really interesting. She stopped for a minute. She said, no, I wouldn't, because I value freedom more. And that's what we're talking about in today's episode, is understanding yourself, understanding your core values and what motivates and drives you. A core value will motivate you to move towards something or away from something. And it can be very valuable and helpful to you if you know your core values. And I've spoke a lot over the years on numerous podcasts about how I approach investing. And I always say the first thing I start with is knowing myself, knowing my goals, and knowing what I'm trying to accomplish. I start there before I even start looking at possible investment opportunities. What I've never covered on an episode, which is why I'm doing this one here today, is how do you go about figuring out what your core values are? So I'll share with you a simple approach that you can take today in as little as 10 minutes if you've never gone through an exercise like this, or you have trouble thinking, what are my core values? So you can go to corevaluesquiz.com. This is not my own quiz. This is just a third-party company. And they'll ask you a series of questions. What they're going to do is ask you to rank different values that exist in order of, top priority, not a priority for me at all. And at the end of it, they'll email you a breakdown about you specifically, showing your core values, your regular values, what you aspire to become, and what doesn't motivate you. Some examples of my core values that came from this very same assessment were freedom, growth, independence, wealth, knowledge, and exciting life. And I remember taking an assessment like this as far back as college, and I can tell you firsthand that the results were basically the same. And that's the whole point. These are your core values. These are things that you hold deep in your heart and in your soul, and that you identify with. They're who you are as a person, and they're unlikely to change much, if any, throughout a lifetime. So let me explain quickly why it's been so beneficial to know and understand core values over the last 15 years plus in my experience, and I'll use each of those examples that I gave just a minute ago. And we'll start off with freedom. And I would say this is my top core value, even as far back as childhood, whether it was being able to travel and have an adventure, whether it was having the desire to build financial independence, or whether it was creating something I call time freedom, which is the ability to free up your time through passive income to do more of what you love and do less of what you don't like. So knowing this has allowed me to create better focus and design around my active career. It's helped me identify and decide where to live and how to live. And it's helped out in my financial life in many different ways. For example, if you know that a top core value of yours is freedom, then think about what's the opposite of freedom. It's basically being trapped, maybe trapped in debt, maybe, buying luxuries that you don't really need and then having to work more at a job you don't like to pay them off. The classic golden handcuffs. And I've been able to avoid this much more easily by knowing this about myself. Growth is pretty self-explanatory. I'm always looking to elevate my game, step up to the next level, and just grow as a human being. Independence. I prefer to work solo for the most part. It's not like I can't be a team player or don't enjoy community or groups, but I'm essentially an intrapreneur. And yes, I'm saying that correctly. Intrapreneur is someone who works inside someone else's company, but is ultimately an entrepreneur. To use a quick childhood example, I remember one of my first ambitions as a kid was to be a traveling drummer and to be kind of like a freelance drummer, not tied to any one particular band, but to play in multiple bands. And then I would be essentially my own brand. Kind of funny how life turns out. Wealth doesn't need much explanation. It's why I do shows like this one for you, and it's how I give back to others. And it's why I created a path to financial independence years ago. And money is simply a tool that can make you more of who you already are. So there's lots of good that can come from wealth. It's not just about greed, hoarding money, and having a big bank account. Knowledge. So I'm constantly learning, always. Podcasts, books, mentors, programs. It's why I don't read a lot of fiction. It's why, as a kid, I didn't watch a lot of cartoons because there wasn't much for me to learn from it. And that still holds true today. An exciting life. So, funny story here. Before my wife and I got married, back when we were dating, I had her take a core value assessment. Thankfully, she was open to doing that, but I wanted to make sure that we were in alignment at the core so that we could better our chances of staying together long term. Knowing your core values can help better your current relationships or could help you find a good partner to enter into a relationship with. So just imagine for a minute if my wife's core value was adventure, but I valued being a homebody and I hated travel. That would definitely cause some problems in our relationship, right? Or imagine if your core value was generosity and charity, but your spouse was very greedy. It would lead to a lot of financial problems, which we all know is a leading cause of divorce. So with all of this, I encourage you to write down your core values. You may already know what they are or have a pretty good indication. If you need help seeking out what those are, feel free to take online quizzes. There's so many additional resources out there. Feel free to reach out to myself, Travis at ashcroftcapital.com. If you'd like some additional resources, always happy to share those with you. So something to think about here for the week. I hope you found some value in this short episode. You're listening to the Passive Income Lifestyle Series right here at Ashcroft Capital. If you'd like to learn more about current offerings and opportunities, you can visit avaf3.com. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.